You're now listening to the Wandering Buffalo podcast with your hosts, Andrew Chang and Justin Godwin.
Bills Mafia. Welcome into another episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast, a show on the Buffalo Fanbase Podcast Network, the originators of Bills Mafia. It's a great day, team. Bills coming off a decisive preseason victory over the Denver Broncos, 42-15, stretching that preseason game win streak to 10. And, man, I know that's a meaningless stat, but it doesn't stop me from getting excited every time I see it. I saw today that it's the longest active streak outside of the Baltimore Ravens. So, for what it's worth, something to be proud of. And I know this is the time of the year we see a lot of backups, and congratulations, your starters beat our backups. Conversations like that. I have a friend that's a Broncos fan, said something of the likes, and you know what? A win's a win, and ton of positives to take away from this game. Before we get started, if you have tuned in tonight, thank you again, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We have new content coming out every Monday, so just make sure you're not missing any of the shows. So without further ado, we'll jump into the preseason game, week 2 of the preseason against the Broncos. And same as last week, this week I'm going to start off again with kind of the things that I didn't like from the game. And fortunately, this week there was a lot less things that I didn't like this week. Last week we had, a ton of penalties. We had a myriad of turnovers. And this week overall, I thought was pretty clean, pretty mistake-free. We're talking 3 incompletions from the Bills quarterbacks on the day. A whole lot of stuff going right. So just the things that I didn't like from the game, as I read them right now, still feel nitpicky, but this is like a Sean McDermott growth mindset approach. You can't be coming out of these games feeling like you are perfect, right? So the things to work on, things to clean up. The first thing that I didn't like was the penalties. And to be fair on this one, it seemed like it got cleaned up pretty well in the second half. But finishing the day with 8 penalties, still a good amount. And what was more concerning to me about these penalties, a lot of them coming from, some of the younger players in our secondary, some illegal contacts, and I know that's the new focus of the NFL, so we're going to see all kinds of questionable calls there. But these guys that we're going to have stepping in, taking on bigger roles if Trey White's not ready week 1, and even if he is ready week 1, still going to be in the mix for playing time. So definitely something that I think the penalties could still be cleaned up a little bit. Granted, it was in fact better than last week, so call that progress for the sake of progress. Another thing I didn't like was kind of the late game defense, and this one feels the most ticky-tacky to me because, you're in the tail end of a preseason game. You're up big, kind of just finishing out the night. But towards the end of the fourth quarter, it got a little loose. They were, giving up chunk plays in the air. Just for how solid the defense was all day, it just felt a little sloppy at the end. And, I know a lot of the players on the field are kind of these fringe roster guys, whatever. But to me, that's also kind of the biggest chance to make a stand and really finish out the game and really put your stamp on it. So I would have liked to see a little more energy from the defense at the tail end of the game, I guess. The kick return coverage today was suspect to me, and watching the game, listening to the commentary, I believe it was Tasker said, Tyler Bass could kick any one of these through the end zone that he wanted to. And while I agree with that, it's something that we talked about during the season last year. of the little advantages McDermott likes to take during games, and kind of to the point where we were discussing, do we think that he asks best to kick it to like the 1 yard line every time so they can go down, cover it, and even if it's stopping him at the 20-yard line, that 5-yard swing, and it seems like something McDermott would be shooting for. So I don't think it's by accident that we're not kicking it through the end zone. So seeing several returns come out to the 30, 35-yard line, just a little bit concerning at this stage of the game. So I know they're going to be testing out different players there and whatnot. We don't have the full unit that we're going to see, but just something I'm keeping an eye on, because I do think that special teams was a strong area for us last year, and same as my thought process of where I think Sean McDermott's at. I'm looking for every advantage that we can get in every game, and if that means the other team starting inside their own 20, I'm taking that 7 days a week. My biggest complaint to the game, and this one goes solely on the coaching staff, masterful game that they had here, but in a game where the offense was firing on all cylinders, and you have a punting competition going on in camp between Matt Ariza and Matt Hawk, the one opportunity that comes up to punt, you put in Matt Hawk. Now Ariza was in the game. He held for all of Bass's kicks. Everything went smoothly there. So very glad to see that, considering that was one of the big concerns about Ariza is can he figure out this holding? We know Matt Hawk is a great holder. Is that going to be an issue? And through 2 preseason games, doesn't look like a problem to me. But what I really wanted to see here, and in particular this situation, punting from like just inside your own 50, just kind of that too long to kick a field goal. We don't need to go for it on 4th down here. Just a nice, easy punt to pin them back deep in their own end. And we bring in Matt Hawk for that. And don't get me wrong, he had a pretty nice punt, pinned him inside the 20. That's all fine and dandy, but that's the part of Ariza's game that we haven't really seen live of, okay, he can kick it 80 yards. That's freaking awesome. Love to see it. But those finesse kicks where, if you kick it through the end zone, it ends up being, a net 25-yard punt. That's really the situation where I wanted to see him get in there and be able to take that opportunity. Maybe this was a pre-planned, Hawk goes first, Ariza goes second, and they just stuck to the script. But I would have really loved to see Ariza get that opportunity. And that's about it for me on things I didn't like from this game. I'm sure there's some stuff I missed. I haven't gone through and done the second watch of it and really tried to pick different things apart. So go ahead and drop a comment if there's some other things that you saw that give you a little bit of concern you think we should be discussing, and keep the conversation going. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about all kinds of positives from this game. Stick around.
Hey, this is Brother Bill. Now back to the show.
All right, welcome back, and thank you again for joining me on today's episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast. We're going to get back into this show, and we're going to focus on the positives from this game. And we could start in any number of areas. There was so much positive from this game. I'd be remiss if I didn't start out with Josh Allen and the first-team offense. First time we've seen him this year, and, there's always that little worry, how's the timing going to be? Is there rust? It's live game action. Whatever concerns there may be, you're worried about the starters coming in for too long because you don't want to see injuries, but you don't want them going into week 1 without any live action. And to be honest, that is something that I have concerns about. Of, I know these guys are pros. I know they're getting ready, but there's that different feel when you're going against, a team that you're not seeing 5-6 days a week in practice, when you have a live team on the other side trying to, tackle you and take you out. And Josh Allen came in firing out on all cylinders. First team offense firing out on all cylinders. We see Josh Allen go perfect day, 3 for 3, 45 yards, long touchdown to Gabe Davis, which was just a Josh Allen thing of beauty that every time I see something like that, I have to remind myself not to take it for granted. You know, we had such mediocre quarterback play for so long, and we see these plays from Josh Allen that just kind of start to feel routine after a while. You know, you start seeing him move in the pocket like that, and you're like, oh, this is about to be a big play. But just rewatching it and really appreciating, you know, he's able to get away from some pressure. He's able to go through multiple reads and find his guy, Gabe Davis, and jump right there. Gabe Davis, concerns for some people going into this season about, can he step up, be wide receiver 2? Can he pick up where he left off last year? Sure looked like it to me today. And everything's got the caveat of, yeah, it's preseason, whatever. But that connection between Josh Allen and Gabe Davis looks legit. Davis is looking dangerous. He's looking lean. He looks awesome. And I'm so excited to see what he's able to do in this offense with some more time under his belt and a little bit more responsibility. Other thing I love seeing today, both James Cook and Khalil Shakir, 2 big additions on the offensive side of the ball, which was already stacked. Both look like they're going to be just dangerous in the NFL. James Cook had a little bit of a slow start last week's preseason game. But I mean, Khalil Shakir, 3 for 3 on 3 receptions on 3 targets, leads the team with 59 yards receiving. James Cook, 4 carries, 38 yards, 9.5 yards per carry. And what I really liked seeing from both of these players and the offense in general was that movement in space. In particular, some of the yards after catch. Something that we saw all through last year, kind of, you know, a lot of plays where we'd have a lot of passing yards, but there wasn't a ton after the reception. And I don't know if this is, you know, a credit to the whole coaching staff, if this is kind of what we're expecting to see from Dorsey's game planning. I know it's something that Dorsey has talked about producing after the catch, moving in space. But we saw it a lot tonight with the running backs in the open field, with some of the receivers being able to move after catching the ball. So that was really exciting to see from the offense. And I guess the running back room as a whole, definitely, you know, a group that was a little bit of a concern last year, and they're looking rejuvenated. They're looking good so far this year. And that's just not, you know, we're not just talking about the lead dog up front, Singletary, who had a great night. 4 carries, 39 yards, averaging almost 10 yards a carry. We saw it from Cook. He busted out a couple long ones. We saw it. Zach Moss getting a couple nice scampers, adding a couple touchdowns. And then it goes further than that. You know, that's the top 3 guys that we're talking about. And a room that was kind of pegged as this weakness last year. Was it the offensive line? Was it the running backs? All of a sudden, this isn't even a spot where I was anticipating, you know, any exciting camp battles. I thought it was kind of, you know, 1, 2, 3. But Duke Johnson comes in, adds 2 touchdowns, 6.1 yards a carry, 55 yards. And then we go further to Raheem Blackshear, who I'm throwing it out there early before the season starts. We have a new Christian Wade, Antonio Williams on our hands here. This is going to be a guy that we look back to the preseason. If any of these running backs are struggling at any point during the year, we're going to be calling for Blackshear. That dude is balling out, putting up numbers in the preseason. Snapped off a couple long runs, had a long of 25 yards tonight, averaged 11.6 yards per carry on 5 touches. So that running back room is looking dangerous right now. And I'll go right into giving credit to the offensive line. They looked like they were really opening up holes, and it kind of didn't matter what combination of guys were out there. The offensive line was playing great today, keeping the quarterback clean. There was no sacks, no tackles for loss, and like I said, it was really on all fronts. And some guys that we as fans have been critical of, and myself included, Cody Ford goes out and has a nice game. Bobby Hart goes out, also played really well tonight, and it was kind of just top to bottom with the offensive line, just looking like they're working really well together as a unit. I guess I'll give credit to Aaron Cromer here too. It was a question mark for a good majority of last year of, what's going on with the offensive line. We need better play there, and we saw runs up the middle. We saw runs getting into the edge, and how long did we talk about we need more speed guys in the backfield to get that edge, and maybe we have plenty of speed there, and it was just kind of about a little bit of a different blocking scheme and getting those guys into place. So I'm giving my kudos to the offensive line, giving my kudos to Aaron Cromer for getting those guys ready. Another thing I liked in this game, and granted this has to do with a lot of players getting shuffled in and out to get them chances in the preseason. We had 13 different players with a reception tonight, and that's going all the way from the starting wide receivers all the way through the backups. We got running backs involved, tight ends, top to bottom, just the ball being distributed everywhere. And that's the type of thing that I'm looking for out of this offense. It makes no sense to have these dangerous weapons all over the field, and then you only funnel your passing game through two players. Just having all these different weapons for Josh Allen to work with when we get into the regular season. Okay, you wanna double Diggs? Fine. We got Gabe Davis. We got Isaiah McKenzie. We got Khalil Shakir. We got these running backs coming out of the backfield. We got our tight ends. And there's just so many different options to work with. So seeing through all three quarterbacks today, just really being able to get different players involved, it was really good to see. And Isaiah Hodgins in that wide receiver room, a guy that's dealt with some injuries over the past couple of years, and honestly, at the start of this training camp, was starting to be a little in the back of my mind. He's in the mix for making the roster, but he's making a case for himself this summer, and not eye-popping numbers today, but 3 receptions on 3 targets, 28 yards. He had the big game last week, and all of a sudden I'm starting to look at, they're working him into special team snaps. Is this a guy that could supplant, Kumaro on the roster, who we know contributes greatly to special teams? Is that a conversation that's going to start being had? So he's not even somebody that I was really all that much factoring into the mix this year. And all of a sudden he's just putting together a really nice summer and going to make some hard decisions be made on cut-down days. I did like that the team, for the most part, stayed healthy today. We did see Nick McLeod go out. He had a facial laceration, and this is the type of stuff I absolutely love seeing. It reminded me of Tywan Jones 2-3 years ago when his helmet came off and he took a face mask to his head and cut himself up. Nick McLeod goes out, gets 6 stitches, wants to go back in the game. So for a guy that's really trying to make a name for himself and either make this roster, stick around on the practice squad, have somebody else pick him up. I love seeing that heart out of guys in preseason. The last thing on offense that I'll say I really liked was the 2-minute drill right before half. And it was something that as I was taking my notes, I started putting in the negative column because we had this masterful 2-minute drive going, and then it was just getting crushed with penalties. There was, I believe there was an illegal formation, there was a holding call, there was an offsides, and then fortunately, the defense gives us one back. We get our 5 yards back, and then on the following play, they jump off sides again. Keenum sees that he's got a free play. He goes up top to Shakir, takes us inside their 10-yard line. And to me, that drive looked an awful lot like it was stalling out. One of those drives where our mistakes just push us backwards, and all of a sudden, we're not talking about even a field goal to end the half. We're just, that's just it. The half ends. But they were able to turn it around on this, and they pushed through that adversity, came away. Keenum had a great savvy veteran play, knowing that he had the free play, taking the shot. And to me, when I started putting it in the negative column, even if they got a field goal on that drive, it was going to be a negative for me, just with how they were able to be moving the ball and to have it sputter out like that from shooting yourself in the foot with penalties. Even coming away with a field goal in that situation isn't ideal. So being able to turn that around and really capitalize on it, kind of stomp on the neck a little bit going into halftime, that was awesome. And all this positive is just on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball is a little bit more difficult for me to do on the first watch through, but there was a ton of stuff I liked. The main thing that I like about the defense is they were doing the, bend but don't break that we've seen a lot under McDermott. But I think what I like most about the defense is there's not a ton of players that are just really jumping off the page to me that, had this great day. They function so well as a unit that it's somebody different making a play all the time. I thought the secondary for the young guys getting this, kind of extended look, I thought they overall did pretty well. I've been very impressed with Christian Benford. We saw him in there, Kyer Elam, Dane Jackson, all getting a healthy amount of snaps, and that CB2 role once Trey White's back seemed like pretty cut and dry. It was going to be Kyer Elam, CB2, and Dane Jackson was going to be behind him. And then we got this rookie from the 6th round, Benford, and, maybe we'll develop him along down the line. They've had great success, developing cornerbacks, so maybe he'll be something in a couple of years. But this dude's been playing really well, and I think that he's in the conversation of really pushing Dane Jackson for that job. And that says a lot to me because I feel like Dane Jackson, when he had to come in and take on that bigger role last year with Trey White out, I felt like he played pretty well. So to have this rookie 6th round pick come in and feel like he's going to be pushing him for that job, it's really encouraging to see. And I in the secondary as well, I feel like Jaquan Johnson's been playing pretty well at safety, and he's a guy that we haven't really seen a ton of game action from. Fortunately, Poyer and Hyde have been pretty well healthy the entire time they've been together in Buffalo. So we have these safeties, the safety depth that I've been kind of excited to see, and also grateful to not see get game action. Damar Hamlin, a guy that I was really excited when we drafted, and we haven't really been able to see a ton from him. So I thought they played pretty well together as well. And then Epinesa is a guy that kind of flashed a little bit to me today. He had a couple pressures. I know one of them he was pretty damn close to a sack, and there was I believe it was a face masking call that kind of wiped that play out, and it doesn't show up in the stat sheet now, but he also had a batted pass, and we also saw that from Shaq Lawson. pretty damn close to an interception. If he could have tracked the ball down, it could have fallen right into his hands. But on a night that, we did see some pressure, but nothing crazy. It's something that I think goes a little bit under the radar with defensive linemen, of being able to acknowledge, I'm not getting to the quarterback on this play, and kind of keeping your eyes in the backfield and watching the quarterback's eyes and knowing that you're not going to get there, so you're getting your hands up in a passing lane. So even seeing just a couple of those, I think that goes a long way for this defense of, even if our pressures aren't getting home and we're not getting the sacks. We saw a lot of this last year. A very high pressure rate with, not, mind-blowing numbers for sacks. But just being able to get after the quarterback and affect the quarterback's throwing in different ways is almost as beneficial as a sack in a lot of these situations. So overall, pretty pleased with the defense. I think even going into the second, third teams, we have depth there in a lot of positions. And one of the cool things about how this organization likes to rotate the players is there was no real feeling to me of like, okay, our starting defensive line is out, like things are going to go sideways now. It was, we're always shuffling guys in and out. So we saw, some more action from players deeper into the game than I think you would with a lot of teams. And overall, they held the opposing team to 15 points. We can't be too mad at that. And, that being said, the one touchdown that they do come away with was late in the fourth quarter of a blowout preseason game. So really encouraged to see what our depth on defense looks like, let alone the starters that were returning from the number one defense last year. We got pretty much all the same pieces in place and just added talent to that. So looking forward to seeing more from the defense, and pretty much gearing up for the regular season now. With three preseason games instead of the 4 now, you kind of feel like the second game is kind of that quote-unquote dress rehearsal now. So I don't think we're going to see a ton from the starters next week. But, hell, I'm excited to just watch the next game, even if it's the backups the whole game. Because with the depth that we have on this team and the talent of this roster, I'm really excited. I'm a dork in this way. I'm really excited to see, who the third and fourth safeties are going to be, who we end up keeping at cornerback that hopefully never even sees the field this year, but who's going to be backing up Trey White, Kaiir Elam, Micah Hyde, how this wide receiver room shakes out. So we'll stay tuned for that. We got roster cuts coming down pretty soon. We'll be here every Monday, kind of give you updates on that and how things are shaking up. But that's going to wrap it up tonight. Like I said at the break, same thing for the positives. There was so much positive in this game. It's like impossible to touch on it all. So if there's anything you would have liked to, seen talk about tonight, if you want to have a discussion about anything, drop a comment. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe. Make sure you're tuning in every week. That's going to do it tonight. Go Bills.